Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Disidores here to do the first and second grade read aloud of Gooney Bird Greene. All right, we left off with chapter 5. So far, we know that Gooney Bird is quite the storyteller, and she has a really cool way of telling her stories and keeping her classmates intrigued by them and wanting to learn more about the story and hear more about the story. So far, Gooney Bird has told the story of how she got her name when she was born, and also she told about her fancy earrings and finding that cat. So that was pretty fun. So we are going to go into chapter 5, and I'm going to read a couple pages of chapter 5 because it's quite long, and then we'll continue the rest of the week. On Tuesday, all of the children, including Felicia Ann, arrived at school early. Even Malcolm, who had never been early before. Tricia had a flower in her hair. Ben was wearing a vest. Kiko had a tiny bit of pink lipstick on her lips. And Barry Tuckerman was wearing a polka dot bow tie. "Good morning, class," Mrs. Pigeon said. "Don't you all look so nice today?" "You do too, Mrs. Pigeon," the children said, and Mrs. Pigeon blushed. "Well," she said, "I thought I'd wear my new shoes today." Usually Mrs. Pigeon wore soft, comfortable shoes, but today she was wearing very shiny, high-heeled shoes with gold buckles. The principal, Mr. Leroy, made an announcement on the intercom. He announced a bake sale and a birthday and a meeting of the crossing guards. A fifth-grade boy read a poem about Christopher Columbus over the intercom. Everyone in the school said the Pledge of Allegiance together. Then it was time for school to begin. But Gooney Bird wasn't there. "Well," Miss Pigeon said, "let's take out our social studies book, class. Let's turn to the chapter called Cities." "But Gooney Bird isn't here," Nicholas called. "No," Mrs. Pigeon said, "she isn't. She seems to be absent today. Maybe she has the chicken pox." The class was silent. Do you think they all dressed up for her? I think all the classmates, because she gets all fancy and dressed up, think they too were doing the same thing. The room seemed sad. The light seemed dim. Even the gerbils, who usually scurried noisily around in their cage, were very subdued. George Washington, in his portrait on the wall, looked as if he might cry any minute. Slowly the children took their social studies books from their desks and turned to the chapter called Cities. Kiko began to cry very quietly. "I don't want to do social studies," he whimpered. "I feel too sad." Malcolm crawled under his desk and curled up like a ball. Suddenly the door to the room burst open. "It's Gooney Bird!" everybody called. The light seemed to brighten. The gerbils began to run in a circle, and George Washington seemed to smile. Gooney Bird was out of breath. "Oh, I'm sorry I'm late," she said. "I'm never, ever late for anything. I always set 3 alarm clocks, and I lay out my clothes the night before, and I even put toothpaste on my toothbrush before I go to bed so that I can brush my teeth quickly in the morning. But today—" "Wait," she said. "I have to catch my breath." She stood in front of the class and took a few deep breaths. "There," she said. "I'm fine now." She smoothed her red hair, which was flying all about, and tucked it behind her ears. Today, Gooney Bird was wearing gray sweatpants, a sleeveless white blouse with lace on the collar, and amazing black gloves that came up above her elbows. Which they have an illustration of that. Here she is. Okay. "This morning," she explained, "I quite unexpectedly had to direct an orchestra." "An orchestra?" asked Miss Pigeon. "Yes, a symphony orchestra." Mrs. Pigeon smiled. "I hear all sorts of interesting excuses for being late, but I never heard that one before." "I believe I'm quite unique," Gooney Bird said. "Yes, you are indeed. Did you wear gloves when you were directing the orchestra?" "Yes," said Gooney Bird. "As a matter of fact, I did. I found them very helpful. For those of you who may not know, an orchestra is music like violins and sometimes a big cello, any type of string music. And sometimes you have someone at the front of the orchestra, the conductor, telling all the instruments when to play and to go soft or to go loud. So she's saying that she did that this morning. Let's hear more. Yes, said Gooney Bird. As a matter of fact, I did. I found my glove very helpful this morning. All of the second graders had their hands in the air and were pretending to lead orchestras. Even Malcolm was back in his seat, using 2 pencils as orchestra batons. Gooney Bird headed toward her desk. She looked around at the other children's open books. I see we're in the middle of social studies, she said. Mrs. Pigeon slipped one foot out of her high-heeled shoes and rubbed it with her hand. Then she put her shoe back on. Actually, she said, I think the class would appreciate if we held story time a little early today. Yay! Called all the children, and they closed up their social studies books. A Gooney Bird story? Gooney Bird asked. Yes, said Mrs. Pigeon. Yes! Called all the children. Gooney Bird smoothed her long gloves. She went back up to the front of the room. Which one would you like today? She asked. How Catman was consumed by a cow? I'd certainly like to hear about Catman and the cow sometime, Mrs. Pigeon said. Maybe tomorrow. But this morning I'd like to hear one called Why Gooney Bird Was Late for School Because She Had to Direct a Symphony Orchestra. Oh, Gooney Bird said. All right, I could tell that. And it will be absolutely true? Asked Miss Pigeon. Of course, Gooney Bird said. Have you forgotten? All of my stories are absolutely true. Then she curtsied and began. So tomorrow we will hear another Gooney Bird story. I'm going to stop for today. We did learn that the class was very sad when they thought she was absent today, and they seemed to all dress up just for her. So I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you like the story, and I will be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.